Right, I'm going full-on self-indulgent with this one. I've been threatening this video for years now, and I've finally decided to do it. I friggin' love ABBA. They were the first real band I obsessed over, the first band I ended up with a fairly intimate knowledge and understanding of. Forget Metallica, forget Deep Purple, forget Death. My roots in music and my appreciation of it can all be traced back to ABBA. Now, I get that a lot of people dismiss them as saccharine nonsense or assume that fans are just obsessed with the Mamma Mia movies, but I'm here to give you my perspective on the band. Now, obviously, I'm generally seen as a death metal guy or a beard-stroking prog fan, but ABBA will always be one of my all-time favourite bands. So, let's get right into the rankings. At number 9, it's Voyage. So, when Voyage was announced, it felt like one of those rare, the world just shifted a little moments. ABBA, dormant for 4 decades, suddenly reuniting with brand new music. It had the weight of history before a single note was even heard from the album. And, to its credit, there are moments here that genuinely capture that ABBA magic. Don't Shut Me Down sparkles with wit and emotional complexity, while I Still Have Faith in You is a sweeping ballad that wears its sentiment on its sleeves. There's also a warm, lived-in quality to the vocals. Age has given them a richness that no amount of youthful energy could ever replicate. That being said, the album often feels like it's, coasting on the goodwill of its existence rather than striving to reinvent or fully commit to a modern statement. Tracks like Bumblebee and Little Things lean too far into gentle nostalgia, missing the dramatic spark and inventive hooks that made ABBA timeless. Even the more upbeat cuts have a strangely muted energy, as if the band is holding back instead of throwing themselves into the theatrical abandon they once mastered. It's more pleasant than it is thrilling, which is fine for a curtain call, but it's not the grand victory lap that some might have imagined. Still, Voyage carries a certain quiet power as an act of closure. ABBA didn't need to come back. No, of course they didn't. They wanted to. And that in itself is worth celebrating. The album works best if you approach it as, a fond postcard from old friends rather than the next leap forwards in their artistry. It is a record built for the fans who have grown old with them, content to sway gently to its memories. For all of its shortcomings, Voyage reminds us that even a lesser ABBA is still ABBA, and that's never not worth hearing. Right, number 8, Ring, Ring. Okay, so before the ABBA name was cemented in pop culture, there was Ring Ring, a debut that wears its early 70s pop leanings quite proudly, while only hinting at the genius to come. It is an album brimming with sunny melodies and straightforward love songs, very much of its era, yet still charming in its own right. The title track, with its instantly memorable chorus, has that irresistible sing-along factor. You can already hear their knack for melody construction, even if the production is a little more modest than their later albums. However, the record also reveals a band still in the process of finding their identity. The arrangements, whilst cheerful, lean heavily on the trends of the time, with folk-pop shadings and radio-friendly bounce. There's less of the polished sophistication that would later define their sound, and more of a let's just see what sticks approach. In that sense, Ring Ring is more of a sketchbook than a finished painting. It's fun to leaf through, sure, but you know that the real masterpieces are still ahead of them. The joy of Ring Ring lies in its earnestness. There's no calculated brand power here, just 4 musicians testing their chemistry together and stumbling into moments of brilliance. Listening now, it's impossible not to smile at the wide-eyed energy that would eventually blossom into one of pop's most enduring catalogues. And for all of its rough edges, Ring Ring is a crucial first step in the ABBA story, and one that still holds a certain magic for those willing to meet it halfway. At number 7, it's Waterloo. Okay, so if Ring Ring was the audition, right? Waterloo was the breakout role. The title track didn't just win Eurovision, it exploded across Europe and beyond, establishing ABBA as a force to be reckoned with. There is a playfulness here that's honestly infectious, from the glam-tinged stomp of the aforementioned Waterloo to the lifting romance of Hasta Mañana. The band's confidence is clearly growing, and you can hear them starting to embrace bigger hooks and more theatrical production choices. It's the sound of 4 musicians beginning to realise just how powerful their combined talents can actually be. Even so, Waterloo is still a transitional album, caught between the simpler sensibilities of their debut and the sophisticated pop machine they would become. There are moments where the songwriting feels slightly uneven, with deep cuts that don't quite match the impact of the singles. That said, the high points are irresistible, and there's an increased sense of fun in the performances, whether it's the ridiculous silliness of King Kong's song or the lush harmonies that hint at future triumphs. Looking back, Waterloo is the moment ABBA's trajectory truly bent towards stardom. It's the first time their ambition starts to show in full colour, and it's impossible not to be caught up in its exuberance. While later records would surpass it in sophistication and consistency, yes, the sheer vitality of Waterloo remains a key part of its charm. It ain't perfect, but it's the album where the spark caught fire. Number 6. Self-titled. So, ABBA's self-titled third album is often where casual listeners really start to hear the band locking into the sound that would soon dominate international charts. While still carrying remnants of their early 70s kitsch, the record starts pushing towards a cleaner, sleeker, pop vision. Tracks like SOS are not only amongst their most enduring singles, but also a showcase of Benny and Bjorn's growing sophistication as songwriters, marrying heartache with a hook so undeniable it practically engraves itself into your very brain on the first listen. Even in its unevenness, ABBA feels like a crucial turning point. That unevenness, however, is part of its charm. Songs such as I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do, I Do may feel featherweight compared to the emotional density of their later work, but they're irresistibly sunny and delivered with such sincerity that it's hard not to be swept along with them. Elsewhere, Bang a Boomerang and Rock Me radiate that campy, Eurovision-adjacent sparkle, leaning into the theatrical without self-consciousness. You can hear the group's confidence beginning to grow, the harmonies are sharper, and the arrangements are richer. If Ring Ring and Waterloo were ABBA finding their footing, then the self-titled is the moment they started running. It's still an album in search of consistency, okay, but it contains the DNA of the megastars they would become. The experimentation with both melancholic ballads and exuberant disco hints at the future balance they'd strike so well. It's the kind of record that may not ever top a ranking, but without it, there'd be no Arrival and there'd be no The Visitors. Number 5, we're going with Voulez-Vous. So, by 1979, disco was not just in full swing, but it was dominating the global pop landscape. Voulez-Vous finds ABBA diving headfirst into the genre with a shimmering kind of confidence that only they could manage, wrapping their gift for melody in pulsating bass lines and glittering strings. The title track is a feverish late-night dance floor anthem, while Does Your Mother Know and If It Wasn't for the Nights keep the energy up with infectious grooves. This is the group's most unabashedly fun record, and bloody hell do they know it. Now, that is not to say Voulez-Vous is shallow, far from it. Beneath the disco gloss, there's emotional nuance, particularly on Chiquitita, a heartfelt ballad whose compassion is as uplifting as it is bittersweet. I Have a Dream may be overly saccharine for some tastes, but its sincerity makes it a favourite for many, including myself. The production is at its most polished here, with Benny and Bjorn crafting arrangements that sparkle without ever feeling cluttered. Where Voulez-Vous excels, though, is in marrying ABBA's knack for pop storytelling with a genre that thrives on repetition and rhythm. The result is an album that's both of its time and timeless in its ability to make you just want to get up and dance. Throw anything on this onto a wedding playlist, you've got yourself a packed auditorium. Even if disco wasn't ABBA's home turf, they made it feel like it could have been all along. Right, number 4, we're going with Super Trooper. Right, okay, so this one arrived at the dawn of the 80s, and you could hear ABBA subtly shifting away from the disco highs of Voulez-Vous towards something a bit more grounded. The title track and on still pulse with a pop sheen, but they are tempered by the poignant melancholy that would come to define much of their later work. This is the ABBA album most concerned with real life, peeking behind the sequins to reveal the fatigue and longing that lay beneath it all. The emotional depth of Super Trooper is perhaps most evident in The Winner Takes It All, a ballad so raw and personal that it remains one of the greatest breakup songs in pop history. Frida and Agnetha's vocal performances across the record feel really lived in. They are not just singing here, they are telling stories from personal experience. Songs like Our Last Summer and Happy New Year carry an autumnal wistfulness, blending nostalgia with the uncertainty of what lies ahead. Now, despite this introspection, the album never really drags. The melodies are still sharp, the arrangement's still pristine, and the sequencing is super tight. Super Trooper captures ABBA at a point of maturity where they could still deliver massive hits while letting in more shadows around the edges. It's a record that rewards both the casual listener and the fan who's ready to hear the bittersweet heart beating underneath it all. Right, number 3 brings us to the album. So this was released in conjunction with their feature film. The album represents ABBA at the height of their confidence as both pop craftsmen and album artists. The opening trio of Eagle, Take a Chance on Me, and One Man, One Woman is one of their strongest runs, blending soaring ambition with a near-perfect command of hooks. This is where the group's knack for balancing fun and depth comes into sharpest focus. Songs like Thank You for the Music and I Wonder, Departure show ABBA embracing narrative songwriting in a way that they rarely did elsewhere, testing the boundaries of the pop album format. Even when it verges on self-indulgence, it is fascinating to hear them stretch it. The album also captures the transitional moment between their bright, bubbly, mid-70s sound and more layered, sophisticated production of Arrival and beyond. It's eclectic and it's cohesive, experimental yet accessible. For many fans, this is the record that best encapsulated what made ABBA not just hitmakers, but artists worth taking seriously. At number 2, we are going with Arrival. Okay, so Arrival is often seen as ABBA's true breakthrough, the point where they evolved from just Eurovision curiosities to fully fledged pop icons. The hits here are completely undeniable. Dancing Queen remains the crown jewel of their career, a song so effortlessly joyful and timeless it's become shorthand for the very concept of disco-infused pop. Knowing Me, Knowing You showcases a darker, more mature side with its bittersweet breakup narrative nestled inside an immaculate arrangement. The album's production is crystal clear, the vocal interplay between Agnetha and Frida reaching a new level of precision and emotional pull. It's also worth noting the title track, an instrumental closer that feels oddly haunting and cinematic, adding an unexpected depth to an otherwise upbeat collection. Some of the material gets a little bit of flack from fans. Okay, My Love, My Life is beautifully delivered, but perhaps maybe too syrupy for some tastes. But while Why Did It Have to Be Me gets raised eyebrows from some, frankly, I adore its kitsch and rockabilly shuffle. It is the consistency of vision and the sheer number of iconic moments here that make Arrival one of the defining pop albums of the 1970s. It's the record where ABBA stopped chasing hits and started effortlessly delivering them, cementing their place truly on the world stage. And finally, the best album of ABBA's entire discography, The Visitors. Okay, so if Ring Ring, their first album, was ABBA at their most carefree, then it feels almost poetic that their final album, The Visitors, is them at their most complex, introspective, and daring. Recorded amid the dissolution of both couples' marriages, the album channels that emotional turbulence into some of their most sophisticated songwriting. The title track is a tense, synth-driven masterpiece, while When All Is Said and Done delivers a devastatingly frank post-breakup reflection that could only come from really lived experience. One of Us became the album's hit single, a bittersweet melody hiding a core of loneliness and regret, proof that ABBA could still deliver chart success even when exploring darker themes. Musically, The Visitors marks their most adventurous production to date, embracing synthesizers, layered arrangements, and an almost cinematic sense of drama. The haunting closer, Like an Angel Passing Through My Room, is as minimal as ABBA ever got, featuring only vocals and sparse synths, yet it lingers long after the record is finished. Now, commercially, it didn't reach the towering success of their earlier work, but artistically, it's the most complete and emotionally resonant statement they've made. It's a mature, dignified farewell to their career as a band, one that proved they could evolve with the times and still maintain their identity. More than 4 decades later, The Visitors stands as one of the greatest pop albums of the 80s, even if it is often overshadowed by the brighter, earlier hits. So, there we have it, my definitive ranking of the ABBA studio records. If you're of the faithful, I'd be keen to hear how this differs or is similar to your own ranking. And for the doubters, I sincerely hope you give this band at least one more shot and that you can see the band that I do when I listen to them. If you did make it this far into the video, guys, thank you very much indeed for watching. Please do drop me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Please do consider subscribing for more content. And as always, guys, until next time, keep your rhyme signatures pretty odd.